All right, this time on Captain Chaos's Laboratory, we're going to be working on a holiday tea time porcelain, Mr. Christmas, I believe. Yes, Mr. Christmas. And, or it's either porcelain or ceramic, but they're interchangeable terms for the most part. So on the back, it's a 9-volt plug here. We got a volume knob, a new song selector, and the off-on. Right now, it's in the on. It's not working. So, let's make sure there's... Yeah. So, first thing we're going to do is make sure that the adapter is working. What I did is I just made sure I had it plugged in all the way. Because, you know, sometimes it's the stupid things. So, 9.2 volts. So, we do have good juice going in. So, she is completely dead. So, I'm going to unplug it. And just so you can get a better look, here's the front. There's the top. It has the little guy that pops out, or Santa Claus technically. And here's the back. You can see the labels. Now, this does have an actual cap that goes over this, but that was not given to me because it's not required for me to try and diagnose or fix the problem. That covers Santa. It sits on top of this stud that comes out of his bag. So, on the bottom, we have 4 rubber pads, but on each side of the rubber pad is a screw. So, let's take out the 4 screws and check the inside. There's 2. I wish I could tell you how old it is. It just says the date code is 28. I have no idea what that means. There's no box for me to reference, but it's an older piece because it's ceramic, not plastic. Alright, so all 4 screws are now removed. Move those out of the way. What is it? It's catching on something. Looks like there's a little bit of glue in here, right on the edge. Glue, and it's also catching on the volume knob. So, let's see if we can get this volume knob out. Sometimes they just slide off. I don't see any screw holes in it. Yeah, it just pulls out. And there we go. Put that over here. So if you have this piece, you need to open it up, pull out the 4 screws. Apparently one of the teddy bears is broke. And there's a dab of glue on the back you're going to have to get. And apparently there's some wires that are catching on some stuff here. Ah, the power port doesn't come out. That's interesting. There we go. Sorry, it's the new song port that doesn't come out. There we go. So, And there's the new song button. Now the speaker, interestingly, is adhered to the inside of the spout. If you can see it in there. Let's see if I can get the speaker out so I can maneuver this. So I am assuming that is the speaker. Yes. I'm really wondering what this will sound like with the noise coming out of a tube. And they put it in there pretty well. I'm going to use a small spudger and see if I can get it to budge at all. I don't want to crack or break the porcelain. So the answer is no. Here's the circuit board. I'm just examining it for anything I can see that's damaged. Here's the blob chip. We got capacitors, resistors, transistors. Those are all on the top. Looks like a speaker housing too. This guy here is the one that has the broken arm that was in the bottom. There's a lot of white powder in here. I don't know what it is. Alright, let's unscrew the circuit board. So it'll give me slightly more access and I can see a little bit more. It's held on with a couple of screws. And apparently I'm wrong. That's not a speaker in there. I'm not sure what that is. I wonder if this makes steam. Because the speaker's right here. There's the speaker. The speaker cover is what's attached to the circuit board. There's no components on the back of the circuit board. Switch wires appear to be intact. I just don't know what all this white powder is. This white powder is interesting. It's on everything. I'm going to turn on my power supply. And I want to see if the motor turns all by itself. Technically, all the animation should work. So I'm going to bypass the circuit board. Yeah, it's working. So we're not getting any power from the circuit board to the components, or we're not getting any power from the switch to the components. So we need the handy dandy meter. And the plug. to start poking around and checking the power at the switch, and checking the power at the incoming of the circuit board. So I'm going to tip it on its side so I can see the connections. So we have no power coming into the circuit board. We have 0 volts at the incoming power. So somewhere in this lower board, because there's another board right here that the components are soldered to, we're not getting power transfer. Oh, there's a couple of screws. And we're going to get this lower board up. Here's the lower board. Got some corrosion on the bottom of it. But how this works is the power comes in through this port, goes to this gray and black wire, which then goes to the switch. The gray wire goes to the switch, and then the black wire goes to the board, and then the gray wire is the break point, is the yellow, which then goes to the circuit board. So with this out, I can test these pads here as an example, or here, and see if we're getting power transfer through this small circuit board, since there's a lot of corrosion right there. So I'm going to plug the power port back in. So click. And I'm going to use the meter. We're going to test it. See what we get. We're getting no power. Ooh, I might have a bad power port. Double check just to make sure that nothing's wrong here. 9.2 volts. So again, plug it into this power port. Click. Make sure it's in all the way. And then we're going to test the 2 tracks, which is the bottom and the top. Okay, I got 9.2 volts now. That's odd. A minute ago I had 0. But at the solder pads right here, I'm not getting any power. These are the wires that transfer it to the board. These 2 connections here. So I'm wondering if the corrosion on one of these 2 tracks has eaten through the copper. Now on the circuit board you have the dark green, but that's just the board. Then you have the light green, because that's the coating that makes the board look green over the copper or brass tracks. I believe these are probably copper based on the age. So, hopefully you can see that. If I go across the actual contacts, 9.2. But if I just take these 2 tracks, which only go to these 2 wires, I'm not getting any voltage. 0.08. That's not voltage. So, looks like the problem might be from here to here. There's a couple ways to fix it. First thing I'm going to do is take the power out. You can try and fix the track or resolder. The other option is you can actually just solder a jumper wire. You can see the track, like this upper pin goes around the edge to this inner pin, and then this lower pin goes to this outer pin, and this middle pin is just nothing. It's just there to hold the plug in, the jack adapter. So I can take a piece of wire and just solder across there and there and see if that solves the problem, in case the corrosion that's right in here on all three has eaten away the track right where it connects there. So that's probably what I'm going to do just to try it. It would be a fine fix. It won't hurt anything as long as your solder joints are good. As long as they're not cold joints that'll crack or fall off. And if you do decide to go that route, which is the easiest to be truthful, make sure that when you put it in, the wires don't go across this hole, because this hole is the screw hole. You don't want to run a screw through your brand new wire. So you'd want to make sure that you run the wire along the edge or loop it down and come over. So that way you're not soldering a wire across the mounting point. So there's another way to check this without checking for power. You can also do what's called continuity, where you touch this inner pin on the ohms reading, and it comes out right here at the bottom, and then it comes to this inner pin down here. If you touch here and here, and it goes beep, or it gives you a resistance level, that means you have continuity. You do the same thing for this outer pin. So on my meter, I go all the way over here to where it has the different symbols, and it says ohms. It's going through its testing, so it's overload or overline, whatever you want to call it. And we'll go from the inner pin, because that's just easier to get to. Get this right in the middle. So, and that goes to here. I have no continuity. If I touch this bottom pin, where I know the solder joint's there, you can see I have 0.0403 ohms. If I go back to this pin here, now I have continuity by wiggling it. So I think my problem is right here where the corrosion is, because if I wiggle it, see, I'm putting pressure, I'm bending with the probe, I'm pushing on it, and it's flexing into my hand. If I release the flex, it goes back to open line. So it's probably this pin, because the corrosion is really bad right here, and there's actually a separation. That's most likely the problem. So we're going to make a bypass. So you can test it using the power, or you can test it without power doing continuity. So there's a couple ways to test things. So I'm going to go get some wire, unless I have some here. I do. Look at that. Let's see, I'm looking for my flux, because I'm going to have to get through this corrosion. Well, I don't know where my pen is, but that's fine. I'll use the old school paste. I'm going to put a little bit on here on the pins. So I'm going to also put a little bit on the actual wire, since this is tin wire and not copper. anytime you're soldering to old solder, you need to put fresh on there. And that's where the paste is going to help. You know, you might be able to hear it sizzling. There we go. So I got new solder balls. And just to make sure that reheating the solder didn't do anything, so plug it in. Still nothing. So alright, so there's that. Apparently my soldering pen collar came unscrewed. Just tighten that up. Don't do it with your hands once you have the thing warmed up. It's a little hot. So I'm going to cut off the excess that's sticking out. I made the wire long for a reason, so I could do that. And now, let's get that. Alright, that's tinned. Now, because the wire is bare, I am not going to be holding it with my fingers because it's going to get really hot. So I'm going to put it in place with a pair of pliers there, and then adhere it. So. Some of this flux paste so I can see it better. Wire. So this is the easiest way to bypass a bad circuit board if it's a small amount of circuitry that needs to be bypassed due to bad tracks or corrosion. Hopefully this will fix it and it'll start working. Next thing would be to test the switch and see if the switch is bad, which is possible. The switch could have gone out. Now, if you don't have the ability to solder, this would be really hard to fix. This corroded track set. I don't remember where I got this wire from. Oh, this is wire from a motor. This insulation is a pain. It does not want to come off. I keep little scraps of wire for this reason. You never know when you need a little piece. But this motor wire is just like really tough stuff. Just doesn't want to separate from the insulation. There we go. So it's all soldered up. Let's do another continuity test. Make sure that it's good. Alright, so center pin to center pin. Continuity. And then the outer pin is on the bottom, on the inside. So I'm going to be touching the center pin at the same time, but I'm going to have continuity. Now I'm just going to make sure I do not have continuity between the center pin and the outer pin. It's intermittent, so let's make sure we got no solder touching. It could be reading the off-on switch, meaning that it's got bleed through. there was the problem. So I cleaned some of this up and put it back together so I can actually do it without holding the circuitry up. As you just heard, it came back on. So it had a bad connection due to corrosion. So now let's put this thing back together again. It'll be a slightly tighter fit because of those wires, like I said. But there is room. It's just getting it under the volume switch. That's the hard part. There we go. Now it's under. Now I just can't get it to sit flat. It's caught. Your volume knob is held on with a nut. A lot of these volume knobs have a nut on them. So I'm going to loosen the nut so I can pull the volume knob back so I can get this in correctly. I'm caught on the bottom because of those wires. It'll still fit, but unfortunately increase the thickness or the height, and the volume switch is now in my way. Alright, so the volume switch is now out of my way so I can do this correctly. I'm going to put that back down. The only reason I had to remove it is because that wire adds a little extra thickness to the height, the gap between the switch and the standoffs for those two screws. And that little extra bit of height is too much. And the wire is not in the screw hole, nor is it in the way, because there is plenty of room underneath it. So it sits flush. Now, a lot of rheostat volume knobs that look like that have a nut and a washer. So this has a plastic housing that sticks up. It has a metal finger on the top that fits over the top of the housing to keep it from spinning. So when you spin the volume knob, it doesn't just rotate the whole switch if this ever got loose. Now, if you are afraid of this becoming loose once you put it back on and tighten it, a drop of super glue, not a whole lot, just a drop in case you ever have to replace it, or a dab of hot glue works totally fine. You can even go as far as buying the blue Loctite. I don't recommend it. I usually just put a little hot glue on the threads if I'm concerned. So I've done super glue too, but you just literally put one drop in one spot right on the edge of the threads and the nut, because you don't want the glue seeping into the threads, because then you'll never get it off. And you just use a small pair of pliers to torque it down, and you should be good. It shouldn't move on you. Now, we're going to flip this back around. Put the speaker cover back on. I'm going to tighten the one screw I loosened. It's just easier to take the speaker cover off than the circuit board screws. Go. All right, now that it's basically back together, so nothing's can move or arc, let's try it. Gonna need a volume knob so I can adjust the volume. So it looks like the one in the bottom comes out the front, the two on the sides just tip, just like he's tipping when Santa goes up and down, except this one keeps getting stuck. Whatever this white powder is not helping its lubrication any. Let's try the button. Well, the button works. I'm now going to turn it off. Even, I don't know how it is on the camera, but it's loud. I'm going to use a little bit of spray here. And I'm going to re-lubricate the pivot point because these bottom ones are dry. The one up here is covered in grease. This one's covered in... Oh, you can't see what I'm talking about. Covered in grease, nothing, and nothing. So, just going to put a little spray. I'm going to put a drop on the shaft on the back because that's the plastic on plastic rubbing. And the same thing here. Oh, this stuff smells so horrible. Next, while I have it out, let's glue on the teddy bear's arm. It'll probably be easier to do that out than when it's doing it through the little window up here. Just wiping off anything that's on his arm. A little dab of super glue. It's actually Gorilla Glue. I normally use this stuff with the brush applicator, but I am out. I just haven't had a chance to pick any up. But I prefer for parts like this, because I see this question a lot. Stuff that isn't supposed to come apart, I use Gorilla Glue, blue cap or yellow cap. I prefer it. I think it just works better than like super glue. And then anything that's supposed to possibly come apart in the future, hot glue. So apparently I didn't have his arm in the right spot. Seriously. There we go. It's kind of an awkward spot for his arm. The angle that it broke at. There's really no easy way to press on it to hold it for a minute. So yeah, this is an interesting piece. It's really loud. I'm sure the camera picked it up, but if not, it is really loud, and I didn't even have the volume up that high. So, So if you have this piece, and let's say it quit working on you, it's a good chance that you might have a bad solder joint or corroded joint on your incoming power port. If not, it has a motor and gears, so if they break, you can look them up. The motor in the bottom center is a synchronous, or excuse me, it has an offset. It's an offset gear. Thank you. Oh, blew my finger. Crap. Got it. The motor is a 9-volt motor. I'm going to let you know right now, they are virtually impossible to find. I've been trying to find 9-volt motors for a while. Just in case you have this piece, is there any markings on it? No. But you might try Happy Holiday parts, because Victor has a lot of Mr. Christmas stuff, so you might have an OEM motor or a replacement. Alright, now let's carefully get this thing back in. Make sure you remove anything you attach to the back, knobs, etc. Watch the wires and the bears. Watch the bears more than the wires. The wires you can move out of the way. The bears are kind of sort of glued to their platforms, and well, if you knock them off, you'll have to glue them back on. Oh, sounds like a delivery. I'm sure you can hear the dog barking because the doorbell just went off. Amazon or UPS, because I'm expecting some more houses to repair for future videos. And according to delivery, they were supposed to come today. There we go. Alright, I have it in. All I'm going to do real quick is I got the wire looped around the volume knob. So the wires, there we go. The wire is not as important as the bears. We don't want to break those bears. So let's run these screws in and give it one last test. I'm going to set it on the back. So, 2, 3. Just tighten the first one because I only put it in enough just to hold it. So technically 3 there, and number 4. Go. Next, we need to put the button extender in. It's just a round hole. It just slides over the shaft. Like that. And a volume knob. And the volume knob has serrations on the inside, but it's not keyed. It's also cylindrical. So you just push it on and push it all the way flush. Alright, so now smacking stuff. Let's plug her in and turn her on. We'll see how it works tipped backwards. So yeah, they're moving back and forth now. He's not getting stuck. She's coming out to the door and walking in. This one's leaning in towards the window, and Santa Claus is going up and down just to make sure they still work. Volume and music selector. So if you have this piece, it's not horribly difficult to take apart. You just got to be careful of the little figures on the inside. Most of the gears that I saw in here are standard hobby motor gears, so a basic kit will take care of them. The offset gear that uses an eccentric, that one will be a little bit harder. Santa, If he starts to get sticky or squeaky, the plastic right in here, he rubs up and down on a couple of plastic. So there's a plastic platform, and then there's a bar, and that bar rubs against the edge. So if it starts to stick, you can use something like this. About that. Just like I did. I use this on plastic parts. I've been finding it works better than using an oil-based lubricant, the non-stick dry film. So if it's plastic on plastic, not nylon gears, but literal plastic on plastic, that's why I lubricated this. And I did the last Department 56 piece as well. Same thing, the plastic on plastic, I lubricated with that. That's only for pieces that have plastic on plastic moving parts. So, but there is the happy holiday, or excuse me, holiday tea time from Mr. Christmas. Not a clue when it was made, but I'm going to assume it's probably close to 20 years old. And 4 screws on the bottom. Careful of your figures, the 4 that go in the windows. Pull it out. If you have no power, do a continuity check or a power check. It's very possible you just have some corroded tracks. You can either try and repair them or bypass them. And you saw how easy it is to do that. It took less than an hour. If you were doing it without talking to yourself or the camera, and you didn't have to glue an arm on, probably have it done in 30 minutes or less. So, alright, till the next repair, thanks for watching. Have a good one.